Shahram Akbarzadeh. He is a professor of Middle East politics at Deakin University, and he joins us live now from Melbourne in Australia. Thank you for being with us on the program, Professor. Now, Netanyahu is being criticized, as our correspondent mentioned, for not doing enough for the release of the hostages. Will the pressure lead to a prisoner swap?
Well, thanks for having me. I think there is mounting international pressure for Israel to respond proportionately to the crisis in Gaza. The blockade of Gaza has not only put the civilian population in Gaza under the threat, the bombardment, the lack of food, basic necessities, but also this has put the lives of Israeli hostages at risk. So there will be mounting pressure for some kind of a pause to the conflict.
Egypt and Qatar played an important role here because they mediated the release of the 4 hostages that have been freed so far. And I'm sure that there's a lot of diplomacy happening behind closed doors. What's the most they can do to stop Israel's bombardment of Gaza?
I think what they can do is to point out the fact that Israel is violating international law, and they have been saying that. Especially Qatar has made a point of that. The Emir of Qatar has specifically said that it looks as though the lives of Palestinian lives does not matter when it comes to the conflict. Everyone is concerned about the lives of civilians in Israel that was taken by Hamas terrorist attacks, but no one seems to care about the lives of children and civilians in Gaza. So they have raised the question of double standards. They have pointed to Israel that it does suffer its relations with the Arab world if it continues on its military operation in complete disregard of international law.
Those questions have also been raised to the U.S. A lot of pressure is being put on Biden, from the public at least, with protesters saying they don't want their tax money to fund the killing of innocent civilians. How do you analyze Biden's position in all of this? Will he call for a ceasefire?
Well, as we observed, the United States vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that called for a pause, a humanitarian pause to military actions so that food and basic necessities could be shipped to the population in Gaza. The Biden administration is probably a bit concerned about its own future. Biden is concerned about the presidential election coming up next year. But this hasn't gone well with a lot of opinion makers, especially in the Democrat Party in the United States. I noticed that former President Obama has issued a statement recently, specifically pointing out that there are rules of engagement that Israel needs to observe. The principle of self-defense doesn't negate the fact that the state needs to still avoid hurting and killing civilians in pursuit of its national interests.
All right, Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh, thank you so much for being with us here on the NewsHour and sharing that analysis with us.
Thanks for having me.